Welcome to What If Civilization Started Over, episode 33. The last episode we saw the fully end of an era of war that got started by the world destroyers. That was just a domino effect. But today we will not focus as much on Europe as before, as countries meanwhile this all happened that weren't involved in this war, all expanded into different areas of the world. While everything gold, grey were actually in a very good position, they are very neutral in this world and only ever had a problem when orange infiltrated their land together with green very long ago. Since they discovered Greenland together with sea green, they are now very operating here. They are very unable to venture more inside of Greenland because it's very cold and icy up there. They do finally have the urge to find new land right here in Canada. There are boats returning to the place where they found very long ago the ship and the captain of Red. And now they finally are expanding more. They are searching alongside the coast and it takes a while. Months go by and finding land here is rough, and eventually they just return as it's very hard to gain land here. They thicken their border and they go back where they eventually got on land very long ago, and they go further south. As they hug the coast, they eventually wrap around, find an island, and also this island is found. They go farther east, more north, and it's pretty clear that I think they found an island. Gold gains more land here and just starts to claim all it for themselves. As why would they not? They go here in the west, they claim this whole island and return back to the northern coast. They do stop eventually because it's getting very cold again and go back south. These two groups eventually meet up with each other and the rest is claimed. They do thicken their border against the coast, but further than that they don't really go. But there are people interested here in venturing to the south. At the western tip they found. They go down and find a few islands here. They go even more down. Gosh. And they find new land again. But they're not the only one who sailed to the west. As after they acquired the capital of Brown, Sea Green wants to venture more to the west, as they know there is just more than gold found. They go straight to the west. Roughly straight, and they find land right here at multiple points. So Sea Green now as well is starting to claim more land. We see them especially going down here in Canada, and we see them eventually gathering every part of this island. They also go to alongside the coast right here and try to find better land. They go. They do find this island right here, and also this tip of this new land. They go even more south, at different points as well, and eventually Sea Green does have a great colony here over in America and Canada. Gold also went a little bit more south, found this island, and found this point via this island. They met up with each other, and they went down alongside the coast. And there they met up back with Sea Green. But out of these three countries I've named before, one did something even better than them. Grey. As Grey went more south, they eventually found these islands that they were claimed by Sea Green, and they sailed alongside the coast. Right here they would return then, and they went farther south, much more south than the rest, and eventually land right here. And they claimed a little bit of land right here. This island. And they went up and went down and went more inlandwards as well. They claimed the rest of what it was south of them. And they were also going to adventure more. They went a little more inlandwards. More than the rest ever did. And they found this water. And they connected up with it. And now the era of colonies started to pop up. And only Gold, Grey and Sea Green were the only ones that really knew this. But another country joined this spree, and that was Bronze. They got the farthest south as anyone else. they got on land on Florida. And they were quick to get the whole peninsula and a little bit of the islands surrounding them. That was very good for them. And let's take a look how all these 4 colonies are ending up looking like when the wars ended in Europe. This is Gold, their colony, of course close to Greenland, what is considered their original land, without really a colony. And they have built, after years, a few settlements. Not a lot though. They have one here in the top, one here in the south, one here, and one there. And also here we have one built. We will look at Sea Green now, as they have built 2 right here, 1 right here, and 1 right there. Not a few here up north, only 1. Grey has put a lot of work in their small area, as they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 settlements right here. And Bronze got 1 on this island, 1 on the tip where they landed roughly, 1 here, 1 there, and 1 to the south. And after all these years, also trade routes had to be mapped out. We see not a trader built, but mapped out by Gold right here in Greenland. That goes from that settlement alongside the coast to this one. Then we see them bridge the gap right here with this trade route. That one will go alongside the coast and join up with their settlement there. And after that it will go around to that settlement of Sea Green. That one will continue through this channel, follow this coast and join up with this settlement. You can also dock at that one and then it will go south even more to join up with this one of Grey. They go alongside these ones from Grey and then they follow the coast and join up with Bronze. And the furthest away will go down to this island. And that makes this trade route work. And when the map of the trade route was coming back to the king, sadly a boat lost course. Right here via a storm. And they badly lost course. Lost the direction and sailed towards Sea Green eventually. But they got through this channel and ended up right here in the capital of Brown. Brown isn't really friends anymore with, well, Gold and Grey. And eventually they find the people and they want to go home. But the king is like, no, no, no. What were you doing here in my channel? They don't really believe that they were lost. And then they search their belongings and find a map. A map of land. And now they believe it really that Red ever, very long ago, found land right here in Canada. And they are now a halt of the trade route. They are left out. They never heard about new land from Gold and Grey. And then is when Brown really got mad, killed the people, and never let that trade route map return to home. Also for convenience, there was a trade route built between the capitals of Gold and Bronze. But when, of course, Brown found out, they of course find it out also that Sea Green was in their operation because the land was labeled by them. Brown of course eventually had some boats ready to see and search the new land. They eventually figured out that Greenland indeed existed. They never really knew it for sure, but now they did. And then they got boats near this Gold area. They got on land right here, and the people of Gold, not many, but eventually realized that Gold got a hold of their map. And that the map never arrived at the capital. And then they, well, left. And they were searching for own land. The Browns were eager to expand outside of Europe. They followed the trade route and knew there were 2 gaps between Grey and Sea Green and Grey Bronze. But they were eager to go farther than anyone else. And so they arrived at this island, but sailed farther away until they found Cuba. And there is where they landed and started to claim this island. After a few weeks they had the whole western side of the island and this little one, and then they got east and got the rest of the island. They got to land on a few islands around the area, and the Browns were fast on discovering this island right here, this island right here, and this one. The small ones weren't really considered as valuable, and now Brown had land. On their mainland they also have built multiple major cities who got built up. Also this one which was important for trade, now going onto the trade route. And that did happen. They connected up with the trade route. Of course, eventually Gold got a new map and the king realized that Brown was on this operation. Brown also had built a few major cities on their new land. And they started to trade with the rest of the colonies. And so, the Western world slowly got discovered. While all that happened, Slade got a hold of more of Japan. A very big extra portion of the island was discovered. But it didn't go as far as here, as they also went outside of Korea and went back to follow the coast. But it didn't go that far north. They made their new border, and then some new governors were scattered around. As one governor that originally got this island was leading all this, but he couldn't handle it anymore, so more had to chosen. There was one for mainland China, one from Korea, and one from Japan. The one that led this island, moved to this mainland China, and this one, of course, got departed. But there were people more interested into not the east, but more the west. But all the governors here were eager to find more land in the east, but there is not. There is, but you get what I mean. But still some people wanted to find more in the east. So a group just went out there and left their old world behind, without really governors knowing that. A group that didn't claim anything here, but eventually ended up roughly here in central China, a country called Peach. This is the first time in history that a country just ended up somewhere, without a coastline, and without, bordering another country. They were in the middle of nowhere, so to speak, but they actually liked it there, and they didn't want anything to do with the Slates or the Lavenders that were, known as an enemy. And the Peaches, expanded pretty big. Their border was pretty large. And they were also different, as they didn't like the operation of Lavender, once Mint, and Slate. They weren't keen on having governors that, spread the order of the land. They want just one man in charge. But they knew about, the kings of the Western world who got in war and, weren't really happy with the citizens, for example. They wanted to find a new way of ruling. And they wanted to do it in one place, rather than all the surrounding settlements, for example. Like this governor can live in this one, but he has to speak with a lot of rulers around them before he can really decide something. They want to do it different. Of course, the world has spread their information very solid now, and they know, Lavender and Slate and once Mint knew that capitals existed. So does Peach now, and they made their capital as well, in the middle of their country. So they had more, so that everyone could come to one place in the center of their country and start to, rule. There were also a few small settlements that were major enough, and they all followed the person that led their country. But it was not just one man that led the country now, and that had children that will lead after him. No, the people didn't really like that idea, that Western idea. No, they wanted to choose the leader, not with the governor way, but that they can vote for a leader. So early democracy was born in the country Peach. They also didn't really want a king that ruled and made the rules. They want strict rules that every leader has to follow. So they made the first written down rules. These people here in Peach were very smart, as there were many people from the war against the Diamond Pact. They had seen things in Europe that, could have been different here in Asia. As after a few negotiations with, very smart people, they eventually did an election for a few people. 3 men were there. We had 3 men. And eventually, one got chosen. This one. A man who was eager to follow the people. To make the people happy. To not be a leader that wants war or decides everything. So he actually approved that paper with rules written on it. And so the first democracy of this civilization was born in the center of Asia. A place that was very isolated from the world since lavender got there, since the deviation of a ship from purple. All these countries that ended up here, Slate, Lavender and Mint, all were different than the rest. But these have learned from the mistakes that were made here in the south, and also the mistakes that happened here in Europe. They wanted everything different, and they made it into a democracy. The first democracy was made with an actual law book, and this is how we will picture democracy in the series. The first democracy born in the middle of Central Asia, and no one actually knew yet how they operated like. Now that Blue finally was free, they could throw the old king away that was still sort of was believing in the Night Blues, and they brought their own king back to rule. Their king that actually still was alive before they got annexed and puppet stated by them. Now that they are back with their king always wanted to have more glory and power than they had before, well, things got farther south that they were puppet stated. They actually invaded Peanut Brown as well, because they wanted their former glory back, their country. And so they also wanted to attack Amethyst as well, but that got far south and declined. And then Night Blue, well, got the better hand of it and completely puppet stated them. Now that Night Blue was very weak, not in an alliance anymore, and very distracted to build back up, they were right to strike them down. The army of Blue set foot inside Night Blue, and they were fast at going through the first two provinces. They were quick, they were not very strong, but there was not really anyone to fight against, as Night Blue was totally lost it after Rosewood defeated them. They got to the tip of the province and got a settlement in hand. And soon the first province surrendered. Slowly but surely, Dark Blue entered a state that they hadn't felt for very long. Night Blue was shocked. And yes, they did fight back for a while. And got a settlement back. It wasn't for long until they got wiped out. And then something happened that Night Blue didn't saw coming. After just being here, even smaller than before, Dark Blue was not the only country that was going to invade them. As Rosewood entered their country once again, they actually really liked what Dark Blue was doing here, and they, well, got the news that they were doing that. They entered the southernmost province and quickly went through and got a settlement. And the first province was, well, for Rosewood now, and now it was actually a race to get to the capital. Dark Blue got the third province of this little war. What could you even call it a war if there even almost no one was fighting back? The Night Blues were tired and exhausted, and even some were here with open arms, as what Night Blue actually did in their country was not very nice. The king wasn't very nice, and the people were actually pretty poor, other than the army he supported. The people that got in the army were richer and, well, were here to fight against Magenta and such. But, well, all those people were mere dead. The families that were left were like, please help us. This has to be the end. And now Dark Blue and Rosewood were fighting at the same side. Rosewood got a new settlement. I was actually very happy. And even Cyan got here and got a little province right here in the north, as they really saw this as a valuable city. As well as this one here in the south. That province was gained by Cyan. Cyan even attacked right here in the east and connected their border back up with Neon Lime. And so also Cyan was entering this war just to get rid of this Well, very bad country. Some consider this even to be worse than Dark Blue, as Dark Blue never invaded countries in Europe, such as Magenta. Magenta and Dark Blue were actually pretty much friends until Dark Blue got to this point. Cyan got south, the last settlement right there, and then they marched towards the capital. Also, Dark Blue was already doing the same for multiple points, connected their fronts, and went up. Rosewood as well went down, and they all entered the capital. This wasn't a large operation at all actually, just these three countries helping each other out. Before they could do anything, the countries were here all at the same time and they killed the king of Night Blue. Night Blue was defeated, and now Dark Blue had a chance to rise again.